Over the years of walking with people in YWAM, one of the things that I've learned is that one of the most important tools you need to have is knowing how to be a good friend and the right kind of friends that you actually need to have. And when you stop and think about it, it's amazing that this piece of our life that is probably one of the most important few things in our life is something we rarely talk about. It's something we rarely get teaching on. I mean, I don't know if actually, outside of what I'm about to share with you, I've actually ever heard in my life anybody give a teaching on friendship. And I wonder what would happen in our lives. See, this is what I know about so many young people, is they spend 99% of their time pursuing romantic relationships, and they just kind of let their friendships be whatever they are. I wonder what would happen if you would spend 99% of your time being intentional about friendship, and what would happen if you just trusted God with your romantic life. I actually believe this. If you would become the kind of person that would pursue right, beautiful, and healthy friendship, you're probably the kind of person who's going to find yourself marrying somebody incredible sometime soon, because friendship is the foundation of all relationships. Friendship is the foundation of marriage. What is marriage other than covenant friendship with the one you're choosing to partner your life with more than anyone else? We need to learn how to be great friends. And we also need to learn what kind of friends we need to pursue. And especially in a moment like this, where you are transitioning from YWAM, you're transitioning from your DTS or potentially other schools, and you're going into brand new experiences. You're going home, you're going back into old experiences, all of the above. That this is a moment where you and I need to understand the kind of friends that we're called to have in our lives. Leonard Sweet, who's a theologian and an author that I deeply respect, a while ago wrote a book called 11, and very simply talked about the 11 essential relationships or friendships that people need in their life. It really moved me. And in fact, my entire teaching is just simply going to be walking you through his 11 relationships of the kind of people you need to have in your life. And I would encourage you to take notes. I would encourage you to write down these things as I'm sharing them with you. And then even whether it's while I'm teaching or after I'm teaching, take time and actually go, do I have these friendships in my life? Do I have these kind of people in my life? One of the common questions I get about this teaching a lot is could multiple people make up different friendships? Or are we talking about 11 different people, or are we talking about a handful of different people who play different roles? I would tell you that there are some of these people who can certainly, one person can be 2 or 3 of these. One person can't be 11. The only person who's all of these is Jesus. So we're definitely talking about a myriad of relationships, a plurality of relationships in your life. But certainly some people play multiple roles in our life and in who they are. And I want to challenge you with this. You need to become the kind of friend you wish you had. I honestly, I say this out of love, but I'm amazed by the amount of people I talk to who actually have expectations of their friends they never have of themselves. People who are mad that their friends are bad friends, but they're a terrible friend themselves. The blindness that we can have in our lives sometimes to have these expectations of other people that we're never willing to do for ourselves. It's amazing to be. Don't be that kind of person. Don't be a jerk. Don't be that friend. You need to be a leader and an initiator and be the kind of friend that you wish you had in your life. And I promise you, where you go first, you're going to see an incredible thing begin to happen in your life. So let's walk through these. What are these 11 essential relationships that you need in your life? First is this. You need a Nathan. All of these relationships are actually centered out of biblical figures and biblical portraits. And the first is a Nathan. Nathan is the prophet who comes to King David and a prophet during the reign of David in the Old Testament. I want you to think about this story. Nathan is the one. David has just abandoned his rightful place of leadership. Instead of leading the people into war himself, he's pulled back. He's on the rooftop where he shouldn't be. He begins to lust over Bathsheba. He builds a strategic plan to kill Bathsheba's husband, and then the killing of her husband. He gets her pregnant, marries her for himself, and this is the great moment of King David's failure, of his selfishness, of his adultery, of his murderous nature, of his ability to choose himself above the good of his people. This is a dark moment in David's life. Nathan is a prophet, and he comes to David and he stands with him and he goes, I want to tell you a story. There's a shepherd who just has a few sheep. just a handful of sheep, but he cares about them and loved them really well. But there's a rich man who had thousands of sheep. And one day he was up and he was looking, and he looked down and he saw the man with his few sheep, and he became so jealous of that. He actually went and he killed the man and he took the sheep for himself. What do you say we do with this man? And David, enraged, looks at the prophet Nathan and goes, you should kill that man. And Nathan looks back at David, and with finger pointed, he says, King David, you are that man. I mean, think about the audacity of Nathan in that moment. David had all authority. David had all authority. David could have had Nathan killed in a heartbeat. Nathan chose to honor the truth even when it was costly. And this is what Leonard Sweet actually says about this idea. You need a Nathan in your life. You need an editor. This is what I would tell you. You need an editor. Do you have someone in your life who's willing to speak the truth to you, even if it costs them? Do you have someone in your life that's willing to actually show you the places of your life that are broken, even if it frustrates you? I'm not talking about being a judgmental person. I'm talking about somebody who loves you enough. And I love this picture of an editor. And I want you to hear me. Everybody needs an editor. Have you ever tried to be an accountability group? Accountability groups don't work. Why don't they work? Because you can't actually just sustain a group centered around failure. It's not going to last. You might do it for a while, but it's inevitably going to fall apart because it's just like, oh, let's get together and be discouraged about how much we screwed up. And nobody's actually really trying to stay holy. It's just a false attempt. And that might be a little cynical perspective. But here's what I think. What we actually need are editor groups. What do editors do? They look at a story, they take out the parts that don't belong, but they infuse life to the parts that do belong. And that's the kind of relationship you need. Somebody who's actually going to step into your life and go, hey, this part of your story doesn't belong. I'm going to hold you accountable here. But it's not just accountability. It's actually going, I know who you really are. I know the way God has really shaped you. I know the things that he's put in your life. You need an editor. You need a Nathan. You need somebody who's willing to take you aside and speak the truth in love to you. You need an editor. This is the first relationship you need in your life. Number 2, you need a Jonathan. You need a Jonathan. And again, here Leonard Sweet pulls from the story of the life of David, Jonathan being the son of Saul and the best friend of David. And the way what Leonard Sweet puts it is this, he goes, who can you count on for unconditional love in the face of life's darkest circumstances? A Jonathan is going to believe in you when no one else does. A Jonathan is going to be loyal to you even when you make it hard to be loyal. In many ways, I think in our language, this is what we would call a best friend. But here's what I've learned. Oftentimes, our best friends are not good friends. A lot of times we use that language, but they're not actually building that kind of thing in our life. I actually believe this. You and I, we need these kinds of friends. And certainly your spouse, if you're married or if you're about to get married or when you get married, is going to be a friend like this. Your spouse needs to be a Jonathan in your life. But what I would also encourage you is that outside of your spouse or outside of your future spouse, you're going to need a friend or two like this too. And I just encourage you this is a deep conviction I hold. I actually believe that God created men and women as equals. I believe that God has profound relationships that can happen between men and women. Many mentors in my life have been women. There are deep friendships in my life that are women, and so I'm not a person that would ever subjugate or tell you that those things shouldn't be connected. But I offer you this piece of wisdom: when we're talking about a Jonathan that is not your spouse or not your future spouse, I would call you and tell you that Jonathan needs to be a person of the same sex to you. It's somebody, because there are right boundaries. I don't talk about intimate things with people of the opposite sex. I don't share my struggles or victories or challenges with my marriage or my sexual life with people of the opposite sex. That'd be inappropriate. And there are things in my life that I choose to only talk about with my wife or with a core few relationships of the same gender. And I would tell you that when you're talking about a Jonathan, It's the kind of person that you would share everything with. It's got to be somebody you're completely transparent with. And oftentimes it finds its best fruitfulness in just simply a person of the same sex. I found that when people try to force this into a person of the opposite sex, eventually one of them gets hurt because one of them wishes that this friendship would become more than a friendship. So I want to just offer you that as encouragement. You need a Jonathan in your life. Do you have a Jonathan in your life? Do you have somebody who's going to stick by you? Somebody who's going to love you? Somebody who's going to defend you? Somebody who's that second self? You need that. We all need that. Third, you need a Jethro. A Jethro. Who is Jethro? Jethro is Moses' father-in-law. And really, there's this moment in the Old Testament, Moses is leading the people of God. He's overwhelmed. All the requests are coming to him. And he comes to Jethro and he's saying, I can't do this. I'm overwhelmed. The people of God are complainers. They have so many needs. How do I do this? And Jethro, basically, this is my interpretation. He basically goes, Moses, stop it. You're just being a bad leader. You're trying to do all of it yourself. Shape up. Get a plan, get your life in order. Everything's going to be fine. Actually, Leonard Sweet calls Jethro a butt kicker. That's what you need. You need a butt kicker. That you need that person in your life. This is often a mentor, often somebody who's older than you, who's farther along than you, that when you're walking through something hard and you're like, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm ready to give up. They just kind of pull you in and go, stop it. Stop it. No, you're not done. No, you can absolutely move forward. You're just thinking about this the wrong way. You need someone. That's exactly what Jethro did. Jethro comes alongside Moses and he helps him develop this incredible system of caring for the people of God, breaking up into tribes and leaders and elders and communities. And he basically says, you're trying to do more than you are capable of doing. You got to build a plan. Who is your Jethro? This is what Leonard Sweet says. Who kicks you around when you're intellectually, morally, spiritually lazy or dumb? Who actually takes you and says when you're just choosing to lean into defeat is going to actually stand up with you and go, no way. No way. You're better than this. You've got what it takes. I believe in you. Come on, rise up to your best self. We need those kind of people in your life. And here's the truth. Jethros, while they have the ability to be stern at times, they're deeply loving. A Jethro isn't somebody who's like a passive observer of your life from a distance and just wants to throw criticism at you. No. A Jethro is somebody who loves you, somebody who often loves you like a father or a mother, somebody who deeply believes in you, somebody who's willing to not just give you advice, but help you carry through that advice. A Jethro is somebody in the midst of your struggles is going to rally to you and empower you to be everything that God has called you to be. You need a Jethro in your life. Do you have a Jethro in your life? Fourth, you need a Timothy. You need a Timothy. Paul pulls from, of course, from the New Testament and the story of Paul and Timothy. Timothy is Paul's protege. Paul calls him his son in the faith. I would tell you, according to what we have in the New Testament, Timothy may have been the most important relationship to Paul. Somebody he gave his life to build up. Paul raised Timothy up to be the pastor and the bishop of Ephesus, one of the most important leaders in the early church. And of course, we see from the letters of 1st and 2nd Timothy, this depth of love and trust that happened between Paul and Timothy. Here's what you need to know. You were made to flourish. You were made to have spiritual heirs and sons and daughters. And it often starts not with the crowds. In fact, it never starts with the crowds. It always starts with the one or two. You need a Timothy, somebody you pour your life into, somebody you're discipling, somebody you're raising up, somebody you're loving well. It doesn't matter who. Grab somebody alongside of you and walk with them in the name of Jesus. Help them learn what you have, especially now. If anyone in their DTS goes, I don't know what I would do, then you are not paying attention in any of your DTS. You want to know what you can do? You can walk through your entire DTS with someone who has not had that experience. Teach them how to hear the voice of God. Teach them how to have radical faith. Teach them how to have a biblical worldview. Teach them what it means to have godly relationships. You go walk through. You have everything in your power to do this. You need a Timothy. And I'm telling you, most DTS students, most YWAMers come home and all they do is think about the relationships they need. That's not the right way to think about it. You do need some relationships. But there are also some people who need you. And can I tell you something that I've learned in my life? Oftentimes, it's the Timothys in my life who become my most trusted allies and friends. So many of my friendships started as young men and women that were Timothys to me. And now they're my allies, my co-leaders, my peers. And oftentimes what starts in this kind of relationship blossoms into the kind of the deepest and most profound relationships in your life. Go get yourself a Timothy. Number 5, you need a Barnabas. A Barnabas. Everybody needs a Barnabas. Thank God for Barnabas. Who's Barnabas? Barnabas, again, from the New Testament and the story of the birth of the church in Acts, is one of the main leaders. And as Leonard Seat tells the story of the New Testament, he talks about how there was 2 missionaries who were sent out, Paul and John Mark. They're sent out, and in the midst of trials and persecution that begins to emerge, John Mark bails. He's like, I didn't sign up for this. And he abandons Paul and runs home. Paul is rightly very hurt by this. John Mark comes, and he comes under Barnabas' care. Barnabas, even the name means son of encouragement. And Barnabas loves John Mark. He rebuilds and equips John Mark. And John Mark realizes he did something awful. He abandoned Paul in one of the greatest hours of need. And Barnabas actually reaches out to Paul and says, hey, I've been walking with John Mark. He's ready. He wants to come back out on the field with you. And Paul's like, no way. No way. He left me. I don't trust him right now. I can't do this. But Barnabas so believed in John Mark that he goes, okay, I'll take him out on the field. And John Mark, in being an encourager and a believer in, or Barnabas, by being a believer and an encourager in John Mark, goes out on the mission field. And what I love in 2 Timothy, which is Paul's last writing, what does he say? He goes, bring John Mark to me. We don't see all the details, but we see that there was absolutely a reconciliation and reconnection in the life of Paul and John Mark. Why? Because Barnabas believed in him. Because Barnabas encouraged him. Because Barnabas wrapped his arms around him when nobody else knew how to. And friends, you need this. Do you have a Barnabas in your life? Do you have an encourager like this? Encouragement's not flattery. Encouragement isn't somebody who just says nice things about you to make you feel good about yourself. No. An encourager sees the truth. But the encourager also sees the truth embedded with the truth of God's heart and God's eyes. They call out the realities of heaven in your life. They speak to the deepest parts of your soul. They know what's possible in your future. You need a Barnabas. My guess is that many of you are going to walk home from your school and you're going to find struggles you didn't anticipate. You're going to find shame rise up in your heart. You're going to feel like you failed. Whether it's small or large, it's really easy to let shame write your story. You need a Barnabas in those moments to challenge you, but to love you and to go, it's okay. I'll pick up the pieces with you. Come on, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. You need a Barnabas in your life. Number 6, a Paul or a Peter. A Paul or a Peter. Leonard Sweet would say, you need a Yoda. You need a Yoda. You need somebody to look up to. You need somebody to follow. Peter and Paul are the people in the New Testament who led, right? Peter led the Jewish church. Paul led the Gentile church. They were the 2 initial figurehead leaders of the movement of Christ after Jesus. And I love the way that Leonard Sweet pulls this out because he reminds us that we all need to be willing to follow. We all need mentors and we all need heroes. And I would tell you, you need 2 kinds of Pauls and Peters. You need the first kind, which are maybe people you'll never meet. People that you admire from a distance, authors, maybe people who even aren't alive. And Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a hero in my life. Is somebody, I read his writings. I follow his way. I'll never meet him until the life to come, but he's somebody who's deeply shaping my life. Some of the times, Peter and Paul's are distance. There are people in my life I've never met, but they're deeply influential in my life. Sometimes you'll have Pauls and Peters who are from a distance, who you learn, you watch, you follow. But then I'll also tell you, we all need a Paul and a Peter we can touch. We all need a Paul and a Peter we can sit down and have a meal with, have a coffee with. It's really important that you find spiritual moms and dads in your life. It's really important that you find spiritual discipleship in your life. And you know what I've learned is a lot of people, they wait for somebody to pursue them. But I just want to tell you, if you're going to wait for somebody to pursue you, you're just going to keep waiting. Because as much as I would love to see it rise up in the heart of an older generation that they're just going to be mentoring and discipleship machines and every single young person they're going to find, it's also a little unfair because life just doesn't work like that. I don't think when I'm walking around my church as how spiritually superior I am and how every single person in this church desperately needs my life in their life and how much better they would be if they would just listen to everything. I actually don't think that. And sometimes it would feel a little arrogant to walk up to someone and go, you want to know what you need? You need me. People aren't going to do that. People aren't thinking that. You know what? People are humble. Well, oftentimes people who are really spiritually profound and mature, they don't think they're that great. Even though they are, they don't have that view of themselves. So if you want a mentor, can I encourage you? You should just make a list. 5 people you would love to have pour into your life. Go ask them. You might get a couple of no's. People are busy. That's fine. Somebody might say no, not because they don't love you or value you. They might be full in the season of life. Don't get offended, but go ask. Get a Peter or a Paul. Get a Mother Mary. Get a spiritual leader in your life that could change who you are. Everybody needs one. Number 7, we're moving along. Number 7, you need a Deborah. You need a Deborah. Who's Deborah? Deborah is one of the judges of the Old Testament, one of the heroes of the Old Testament. And actually, it's this really incredible story when Barak is called to war. He's afraid, and he goes to Deborah and says, I'll go if you'll go with me. She was the leader of the people. She had the heart of the people. She had the trust of the people. And she said, I'll go with you. And the way Leonard Sweet unpacks this moment is he calls Deborah a back coverer, somebody who is going to fight battles with you. Do you have a Deborah in your life? Do you have a Deborah who will walk with you, who will love you, who when God calls you to hard things, will go with you? When you need some covering, will step in. Friends, I believe this. Everybody needs covering. Everybody needs some friends and some leaders who are looking out for them, who are going to fight with them, who are going to do hard things with them. And again, you've got to remember the secret of all of these relationships is they're not actually just simply about the kind of people you need in your life. They're also what friendship is really like. Friends are back coverers. That's what they are. Be this kind of friend. Are you the kind of person who's going to go to war with people when it's hard? Guys, God is going to call you to do some hard things. You're going to need some friends who go, I'll go with you. I'll stand with you. I'll do that with you. I'll give with you. I'll pray with you. I'll contend with you. You don't have to do that alone. We need back coverers. That's who we need. Do you have a Deborah in your life? Number 8, and I'll tell you, this one matters. Do you have a Zacchaeus? Do you have a Zacchaeus? Zacchaeus, the wee little man, the tax collector, the unliked one that Jesus has an encounter with, and incredible things happen. Zacchaeus hears the teachings of Jesus, repents, transforms his life, and gives back to all he's wounded and hurt. It's really an incredible moment. But here's the thing I've learned. Most people only have friends who benefit them. And that's okay. That's what most friendship is, mutual benefit. And in fact, a lot of friendship has to be mutual benefit. That's what makes it friendship. But I see way too few people have someone in their life that doesn't benefit them at all, that just loves them because they're worth loving. And maybe they're somebody who, for a lot of reasons, becomes difficult to love. I think this is a lot of people. There's people in our world who are just relationally unskilled. There's people in our world who walk with different discomforts and challenges, disabilities. There's people in our world who, for lots of reasons, are not going to be capable of being your perfect peer. Guess what? They deserve to be your friend too. I often find that it's actually Christ community, real Christ community, when you are actually friends with people you wouldn't be friends with if you weren't in bond in Christ together. This is part of the power of church family that we need to rehold of. That there's actually a way that we invite people into our lives, even if they're different than us. Do you have a Zacchaeus in your life? If you don't, you need to. Think about it. Who's one person in your life right now who's lonely, who's difficult maybe, who's walking through challenges? But they need somebody who's going to love them and pull them in. And I'm telling you, when you do that, you're going to see in their life the transformation of what has happened to Zacchaeus when Jesus wrapped his arms around him. You need Zacchaeus. Number 9, you need a Rota. You need a Rota. Who's Rota? Rota is the sweet little girl in the New Testament who, when the story, right, when Peter and the apostles are released from prison, believes when nobody else does. A doorkeeper and somebody who had the heart to believe when it was difficult to believe. You need somebody like Rhoda in your life. Do you have somebody with childlike faith? Somebody who hasn't lost their sense of wonder? Someone who has refused to let cynicism beat them down? You need a Rhoda. You need a Rhoda. You need to be a Rhoda. You need to have Rhodas in your life. You need to have the kind of people in life who have audacious faith, who believe God to move in power, who aren't going to let cynicism win the day. You need somebody who's going to have that childlike faith. Remember, it's Jesus, right? When he actually pulled, the disciples asking, who is the greatest among us? He pulled a child to himself, and whoever wants to be the greatest must become like this child. Jesus had a place for a childlike heart, childlike faith, childlike life, childlike innocence. It's not foolishness. It's not naivety. It's not somebody who doesn't take responsibility for their life. It's somebody who has unshakable faith in Jesus, regardless of what they're going to walk through. You need a Rhoda in your life. Two more. Number 10, you need a Lydia and a Lazarus. You need a Lydia and a Lazarus. Or what Leonard Sweet calls your VIPs. Your VIPs. And I love the way Leonard Sweet puts this, because what are the differences between these two people? Lydia, who is a wealthy woman who helps fund the ministry of the gospel, and Lazarus, the broke, poor friend of Jesus. Sometimes these kind of people, your fan club, your champions, the people who believe in you, sometimes they're going to have resources to offer you. Sometimes they're not. Having people who believe in you is not just about people who can write checks or open doors of influence. Sometimes the very person you need to believe in you has nothing to offer you but themselves in prayer. You need those kind of people. Those kind of people are sometimes the most profound people in your life. You need a Lydia. You need to have people that have influence and opportunities that are going to champion you to step into the future of your life. And you need Lazaruses that are going to hang with you no matter what. And they may not have much to offer you but themselves, but you'd rather they take them than any paycheck. You need a Lydia and a Lazarus in your life. Do you? Do you have these kind of people? And if you don't think you have, my guess is you do, more than you know. I can tell you, anyone who prayed for you, anyone who supported you on your YWAM experience is a Lydia or a Lazarus in your life. And last, number 11. You need a Jerusalem. You need a Jerusalem. And Leonard Sweet picks up on the city that was so dear to Jesus' heart. He weeps over the city. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. A home, a place you'd die for, a people to give your life to. And oftentimes what I find is that, especially with YWAMers who are usually younger and in transitions in their life, that this can become difficult because you don't know where your long-term home is going to be. Here's 2 things I want to encourage you. 1, you need to root yourself wherever you are, no matter how long you're going to be there. One of the great lies that people believe, if they go, well, I don't know how long I'm going to be here, so I'm just going to live temporary. Lie, stupid. Don't do that. I don't care if you're living somewhere for 6 months or 6 years or 60 years. Root in. Your life is too important to have cheap and easy goodbyes. I don't care if it's hard to transition. You will be thankful that you leaned into a moment, leaned into a people, and leaned into a place for however long you're there. Lean in. Make home wherever you are. It doesn't matter how long you're going to be there. But then second is this, recognize this. Eventually, at some point, maybe you're already there, you need to pick up people. Maybe it's a nation, a city, a people group, a home, a place, a neighborhood. You need to find your Jerusalem that you would give your life for. You need to find a home, and you need to give deep roots to it. God has a Jerusalem for you. And if you don't know what it is, now is the time for you to start contending and asking. But I think this matters because here's what you need to know. You were made for home. You're made for home. And that home could be where you grew up. That home could be any of the beautiful nations of the world. That home could be first world. That home could be third world. That home could be full of comforts. That home could be full of hardship. It doesn't really matter. What your heart and soul actually aches for is the place God created you to be. And when you find it, what you'll find is you'll love it, you'll suffer for it, you'll give your life to it, and you'll experience a radical sense of joy because you were made for home. Doesn't matter how easy or difficult it is, you were made for home. So here's my heart for you. You need to give yourself to deep and meaningful friendship. You need to be an incredible friend, and you need to find incredible friends. And that doesn't mean that we're not missionaries to the world. Because here's what you need to know. God has given you life, not so that you insulate yourself only with people who know Jesus. No. You need to be the kind of person who is walking into every sphere of society, making friendships with people who are outside of the love of Christ and bringing them into adoption in Jesus. No one's outside of the love of Christ. You understand what I mean. Outside of coming into salvation of Jesus. Jesus loves everybody, but coming into salvation of Jesus, you need to be a missionary. But what actually empowers you to be a missionary is that you have an inside circle of covenant friendships, of faithful followers of Jesus who are unshakable, who will hold you firm in the midst of everything you're going into. Now is the time that you and I need to give our lives to godly community and godly friends so we can be the missionaries God has called us to be.